the only way you build confidence is by doing things that are scary with a little bit of fear. So I'm not about make things up or fake it till you make it. I think that you can definitely position your value and your expertise in a way that is with integrity. But I do think that you need to ask yourself what else is true. And typically you have a lot more value to bring than you think. And anytime you get nervous about that, it's actually a little bit selfish because you are thinking, oh, it's all about me. Oh, people are thinking so much about how I'm not the expert. Oh, and really nobody is thinking that. It's a lot in your head and you're making it all about you versus how can I bring value to people? How can I just share from my experiences? What does my audience need to hear today? And how can I be supportive to them?
Welcome to the Audience Coach Podcast, the show where coaches in the health and wellness field will find experiences, insights, advice, and resources for building and growing their audiences. Spread your message, create a community, increase your online presence. New episodes every week. Ready to take action? Hello there, I'm your host, David Perez, and I have a great announcement to make before we jump into today's episode. And that announcement is we have a new co-host. We have Sebastian Beltran as a co-host in the show from now on. He's also a podcast producer. He has been working with me for quite some time, and he has been working with the Audience Coach podcast since the very beginning. So he was working in the back end, but now he's also jumping into the front end and he's going to be co-hosting the show with me. So the interview you are about to listen to wasn't led by me. It was led by Mr. Sebastian Beltran. So without further ado, he goes to today's episode. Enjoy.
Impostor Syndrome. Most coaches, if not all, have experienced it, even the best of the best. But what exactly is this imposter syndrome? How does it affect your practice as a coach and the way you approach your audience? To answer these questions, we've invited Hailey Rowe to share with us her expertise on this topic. Hailey is a business coach for health and wellness professionals. In her work, she has seen how imposter syndrome gets into the way of life and health and wellness coaches, consultants, and course creators, and she has helped them overcome it. Hailey shares with us her own experience with imposter syndrome, the signs you need to be aware of, and some useful tips and recommendations to face it. Make sure you have pen and paper at hand, because this episode is packed with actionable tips. Let's dive in. Hello, Hailey Rowe. Welcome to the Audience Coach Podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here today.
We are all excited to get to know you and your expertise and today's topic, that is imposter syndrome when creating online content. Okay, so let's get into it, all right?
Hey.
So I know you work with coaches, right?
I do. I work with life coaches, health coaches, a lot of wellness professionals in general, and pretty much online coaches, consultants, or course creators.
Okay, that's perfect. This thing of online content is really important for them, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. It can be, depending on which method they choose to market themselves. Content is definitely something that's helpful in amplifying your brand and building know, like, and trust factor with your audience.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so maybe you are familiar with this imposter syndrome that it's been, I think, a trendy topic among these later years.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to please give us a short definition of the imposter syndrome, but focused in the context of creating content online.
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, imposter syndrome means it's when coaches, consultants, or online content creators feel like, am I enough to be doing this? Am I a true expert? Who am I to be saying these things, right? And giving advice, and who would want to listen to me? So when you have that, it can definitely transform into coming across in your content and when you're making videos and things like that. So it can kind of get in the way of, well, I do want to say this and I do want to give this advice and I know I can help people, but I'm afraid that people are going to think I'm not good enough or I don't feel like I'm good enough. And so it can get in the way of taking action and putting yourself out there.
Yes, and why do you think online coaches should be aware of this imposter syndrome? And how can they prepare themselves to face it?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things to think about. The first thing is ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? And sometimes it's a quick fix, meaning sometimes you just are feeling imposter syndrome because you honestly would feel more confident if you had some experience behind you and had maybe a certification or something like that. And so sometimes imposter syndrome is a good teacher, and it can say, hey, I think you'd feel more confident if you got some experience. And it's not that I would want people to wait until they are so experienced and have hours and hours and hours on end before they start, building an audience and talking to people online. But I do think if that's the honest truth, of course you can start to get more experience by offering free coaching calls or doing a certification program or something like that. So that's part one is it related to your true, honest experience? And if so, what can you do to start building your confidence and getting more experience so that transfers into your content and you feeling like an expert? The second thing I would ask yourself is if it's maybe not related to that, or you've gotten a ton of certifications, or you have the knowledge already, but you're just feeling like, who am I to be doing this? You have to change the way you think. And every business problem typically starts with a thinking problem, a paradigm problem. And so what I would ask yourself is, what else is true? And ask yourself, if there's going to be people who are steps behind you, and there's going to be people who you could help with things that you've gone through, stories that you can share, things that have helped you, it's probably going to help somebody else. And the only way you build confidence is by doing things that are scary with a little bit of fear. So I'm not about make things up or fake it till you make it. I think that you can definitely position your value and your expertise in a way that is with integrity. But I do think that you need to ask yourself what else is true. And typically you have a lot more value to bring than you think. And anytime you get nervous about that, it's actually a little bit selfish because you are thinking, oh, it's all about me. Oh, people are thinking so much about how I'm not the expert. Oh, and really nobody is thinking that. It's a lot in your head, and you're making it all about you versus how can I bring value to people? How can I just share from my experiences? What does my audience need to hear today, and how can I be supportive to them?
Yes, I found that really interesting, actually, because one of the main values, one of the pillar values of audience coach is actually serving your audience. Your content is not actually about you, but how you can offer value to your audience. And actually, we, before we started this project, we had some kind of imposter syndrome because we felt that we haven't the expertise, we're not like the experts in the field. But actually, as you said, so by creating content, by putting yourself outside of your comfort zone, you can actually notice that you are actually an expert.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how common is this imposter syndrome in coaches?
I would say it's really common. And I think even the best coaches feel imposter syndrome. I think Oprah Winfrey still feels imposter syndrome. It's just, how do you let that impact you? Are you willing to move forward with a little bit of fear? Are you willing to move forward with a little bit of self-doubt? And hopefully, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you're going to have to accept that and still take action, take messy action. So I think that I hear it very frequently from coaches I talk to and clients in my program when they first start. And I think that one of the best things you can do for yourself is commit to making your vision and your mission to help people bigger than your doubts and fears around imposter syndrome.
Yes. And what about you? Have you ever felt that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that it's easy to compare yourself to other people,
Mm-hmm.
and there's always going to be somebody more advanced than you, or who has been doing it longer, or who just is more consistent than you. And so if you get into that comparison trap, which I think with social media and just being somebody who always wants to be my best, sometimes I do fall into that, and I do have high standards for myself. So
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely felt like, oh man, I messed this up, or, who would want to listen to me when I'm still growing, I'm still on my journey. You're never done growing, you're never done improving. And so I think it's important to remind yourself of that and continue to understand that there's people who really get value from what you're doing. And I see that in my testimonials and when I talk with my clients and the feedback I get on social media. And so I think it's important to focus on that more than I'm focused on, oh man, comparing myself to other people.
Yeah, actually that comparison is dangerous, right? For
Absolutely.
for you as a person and for you as a professional, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you said, so it can block you out, right?
Yeah.
So
As they say, comparison is the thief of joy.
that's a nice quote. Do you think this imposter syndrome is common in the early stages of building a business as a coach, or does it appear like constantly in advanced
Mm-hmm.
stages?
I think that it can get quieter as you grow and get better. But I do think it's very strong in the early stages, especially because there's other people telling you, oh my gosh, what are you doing starting the business? So, or you have no experience in this. And you're also facing a learning curve. So you're very vulnerable at that point in your business. You're trying to
Mhm.
learn how to run a business, how to be a great coach, how to step into a leadership role, how to manage yourself, how to manage your clients and their expectations. So it's just a lot being thrown at you. And so you're in a very vulnerable place. And when you're in that place, obviously it's going to be easier to be more susceptible to negative thoughts and thinking that who am I to be doing this and feeling discouraged.
Yes, completely. And do you think coaches should look for help? Maybe they feel too overwhelmed by this imposter syndrome.
Yes, I think that if you let the imposter syndrome stop you and keep you stuck, it's really expensive. It's costing you. It's
Hmm.
costing you from putting yourself out there and being seen by your ideal clients. It's costing you from getting clients because when your energy behind what you're doing is fearful and full with self doubt, people are not going to feel confident in investing in you. It's costing you from, growing and being able to become more confident. So I think that it's important to realize that it's not just, oh, I didn't do that thing today that I was supposed to do to grow my business. And oh well, I'll do it tomorrow. No, it's actually more serious than that. It's costing you.
Hmm. Okay, completely. And we've been talking a lot about this imposter syndrome, and maybe some people are feeling identified with this thing, but maybe they are not so clear about how to name it, if we can
Mhm.
say so. So, what do you think are some signs that
Yeah.
can tell you that you are going through imposter syndrome?
That's a really good question. I think if you are right before you're about to hit the post button, or as you're writing a post, or as you're on video, the thoughts in your head are, oh my gosh, stop, that you're not good enough. Oh my gosh, nobody's listening to you. Why even bother? Those
Hmm.
are some signs. And then I also think another sign is comparing yourself to others and looking at, scrolling your newsfeed and saying, oh my gosh, this person is so much better than me. And I think you can also take that as a lesson, meaning the people who you're comparing yourself to, it actually can give you an indication of what you admire in other people and what you want for yourself. So I think there's a way to turn all of this into a positive and into a learning experience about yourself and your thoughts and how your mind, you know, taking back control of your mind rather than your mind owning you. But as far as signs go, I think comparison, I think negative, loud thoughts, not taking action in your business, not because you couldn't do it or you didn't have time, but because as you were about to do it, you had a negative voice in your head hesitating. Those are all signs.
All right. Thank you for that amazing answer. Because, I mean, a lot of people are not aware of those signs. So it's really important to be aware to do something about it.
Yeah.
To do something about this imposter syndrome that is actually taking a lot of people out of this amazing field of health and wellness and taking that value off that can actually help a lot of people. All right. So we've been talking about comparison, and I might say that is like a big cause for imposter syndrome. So what do you think are other common causes for this syndrome?
Yeah. I think one of the causes is social media, because we're able to see all the time everybody's highlight reel and their best moments. And so it changes the perception of what is normal. You know what I mean? And so I think that's one of the big causes. I think another cause is being a type A in general, like your personality type. So wanting to be perfect, procrastinating until something is so perfect, having analysis paralysis. If those are some traits of your personality, I'm not saying you can't change your personality. And I definitely agree with Ben Hardy's book, Personality Isn't Permanent. But, you know, some people are just more prone to feeling imposter syndrome. I think another thing is, like I said, lack of experience or, you know, education. Sometimes it's just you don't know something, and so you feel self-conscious. So I'd say those are the top things. And then the last thing I'd say is who's in your life. Do you have people who are supportive and people who are telling you and, you know, are cheering you on? Or do you have people who are telling you, yeah, like, who would want to listen to you? I don't, people who just kind of doubt you in
Yes. And talking about people, there is something really important, I think, and that could be problematic when you create content online, and is this criticism. Because whatever you do or whatever you don't do, people are going to say something.
Yeah.
Yes. And although there are so many people that tell you amazing things and supportive things, there are other people that can actually be really mean. So how do you think coaches can prevent this external criticism or influence from feeding the imposter syndrome?
Really good question. And I think it's really important to think about. And one of the things that I always recommend, well, two things. The first is having a reset ritual or working on something that you can have to fall back on when you need to have a fast resilience rate, a fast bounce back rate, meaning if you get negative criticism, and to be honest, you know, first, I think you should look at the negative criticism and say, is this constructive and going to be actually helpful? Or is this something that somebody was just, they don't know me, they don't know anything that I'm about, and they've said something that's kind of subjective and not true, right? So first look at it and see what you can learn from it. But second, have something you do on the days you feel rejection, something that cheers you up, something that brings you back to your mission, something that gives you your energy back. So for me, that's things like walks or personal development podcasts or journaling, journal questions, like good prompts about turning it into an empowering situation. I love Dan Sullivan's questions from his experience transformer exercise, which you can look up on Google. So that's one thing. But then the other thing is separating yourself and your identity from your business. And what I mean by that is if somebody has something negative to say about your business or your content, etc., that is about your business. It's not about you as a person. It's not, something that you need to overthink and internalize and ask, why did this happen to me, and add all this drama to it. Look at the facts. Ask yourself, okay, is there any truth to this? What else is true? How do I want to respond to this? And come at it from an empowering place of, okay, what, yes, this happened, but I get to choose how I respond and my thoughts and the drama that I add to this. And then from there, being able to, just not let it, like, for example, if you were an affiliate and somebody didn't like the leggings you sold them on their Instagram stories, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, that person hates me and I'm a terrible person and I'm never going to put myself out there again. It'd be like, oh, shoot. What were they the wrong size? Like, were they out, right? Same thing with if you hired a marketing person to do your marketing for you, that marketing person wouldn't be like, oh man, I got to post for this person. I don't know. Are they good enough for me to be working for them and blah, blah, blah. No, they just go ahead and do it. You guys have a vision for the business. You're people you want to help, and that's their job, and they go do it. There's not like this extra stuff. But when it's our own business and when it's so close to home and so emotionally something we're passionate about, it's easier to fall into the trap of, oh my gosh, this is my life. This is me. And everybody I'm under this microscope.
Yes. Actually, I have never thought about this idea of separating yourself from your business, because I mean, it's still like this way is like a baby, we could say. If your baby is something you created with your passion and a lot of time and a lot of effort. So maybe that's why it's so hard to separate yourself from, but it's actually a really good advice for every entrepreneur, I think. Not only coaches in the health and wellness field, but actually anyone who has a business.
Yeah, and every CEO has to have a visionary part where they're overseeing everything with a bird's eye view and looking at the future of the business and, objectively what needs to be done and who needs a role in this business. And so it's very easy especially when you're a solopreneur in the beginning and you're just trying to get out there and everything falls on you, it's very easy to not be able to take that overhead look and get very stuck in the micro things and the day-to-day things. And so I think it's important to try to have both perspectives.
Yes, completely. Something that is been really interesting in this interview is that you are portraying this imposter syndrome not only as a disadvantage, because, it's almost all the time portrayed in this way. You need to avoid imposter syndrome. You need to do something about it. And there is actually this kind of fear that is creating around it, that it's actually harmful instead of helpful.
Yeah.
But do you think, is there any way or ways of using the imposter syndrome to your advantage?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it can be an indicator of things you want to learn. So, for example, if you feel like, oh my God, I have to know all the answers, and you don't, and you feel imposter syndrome because of that, what are the things you don't know, you feel like you don't have answers to or experience with? And that's just either a skill set or thing that you maybe want to work on and learn. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? So I think that it can be positive in indicating, what do I not know? What am I still learning? What do I want more experience with? I also think that it's a good thing because it keeps it is something that we all experience. So it just makes you more relatable and down to earth in your business. Now, I'm not saying you need to like plaster that everywhere and tell everybody you're struggling so much with imposter syndrome. But I think that if you didn't have any imposter syndrome, you might be just a little cocky. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Maybe,
think it's
yes.
normal to have a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And I also think that it can be something that, like starting a business, all the mindset stuff that, like all the different limiting beliefs that come with it,
Mm-hmm.
growing through those things builds your confidence immensely and helps you grow personal development wise in ways where if you didn't have a business and you weren't trying these things and you weren't putting yourself out there and you never had the opportunity to feel these feelings, you would never grow at that emotional level. So I think that on a personal development point, from a personal development level, it causes you to have to grow and become the next best version of yourself.
So it's necessary to grow as a person, as a business owner, as a coach, etc. And it's all about the perspective, right?
Yeah.
If you take it as a learning experience, it's way better. And actually, you can, I don't know, maybe ask for it because it takes you to push your limits a little bit more, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right. Okay. So now to wrap up. So, what are three gut strategies or tips for reducing this imposter syndrome when it comes to creating content online?
Yeah. So when it comes to creating content online, I would ask yourself, what are the top 3 categories or topics or ways that I want to serve my audience that I feel really confident that I know and I've experienced myself and have overcome myself, and get focused on what you do feel good about, what you do feel excited about, what you do feel confident about. And even if there's a little bit of self-doubt there, at least now you have a focus of what what you want to say online, and where to even start, where you feel the path of least resistance towards posting about those things. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing is I would definitely do some journal prompts. So in other words, to get yourself ready to be putting out content and showing up on video and things like that, ask yourself, how can I see my setbacks and my challenges in a different way? What can I tell my audience, or what would my ideal client need to hear today? And how can I share that with them without making it about me?
Mm-hmm.
So, ask yourself questions. And then the third thing I would say is, if this is really holding you back, get a coach or get a community to help you, and talk to somebody about it. So if you wanted to book a free intro call with me, or you wanted to join a Facebook group that's helping women with their confidence, these would be things that you can do to put yourself in an environment that's going to be more supportive and enhancing for your experience. And
Mm-hmm.
remember that changing your environment is underrated. Like it is actually so important if you want to change the way you act and the behaviors that you have. So ask yourself, how can I create an environment? Maybe you need to put affirmations up on the wall, or you need whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
how can you change your environment to support you in becoming more confident?
All right. So this has been amazing. Hailey, thanks a lot for your answers and all this value that you're offering to our audience. So if the people listening to this podcast would like to reach out to you, what would be the best way?
Yeah. So the best way would be to connect with me in the DMs on Instagram. I'm at instagram.com/Hailey_Rowe. And the other way to connect with me would be HaileyRowe.com. Or if you're interested more in my marketing company, you can just DM me about that. That's a whole different story. But I'm on Facebook as well, in the Health Coach Nation Facebook group. It's facebook.com/group/Health Coach Nation. I have a podcast called Health Coach Nation. And other than that, I think that's about it. I have a free for your audience, if they're looking to get clear on their messaging and their bio and their elevator pitch in a way they feel confident about that. They can go to HaileyRowe.com, and there's a free training for them there.
All right, we are going to add those links in the show notes so people can get them easily. All right, so thank you a lot, Hailey Rowe, for your time.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
If you found this episode useful, please share it directly with someone you know is going to find it useful too, and also on social media. We'll be very glad to give you more valuable content. Send us all of your questions, concerns, challenges, and ideas so we can cover them in future episodes. Reach us at audiencecoach.com/contact or on Instagram at audience.coach. To help us grow and support us in creating more valuable content, please rate and comment on this show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other app you're using. Until next time.